Good morning, everyone. Thank you. And oh, we got an echo. Hi, good morning. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. My name is Tiffany Nguyen. I'm a policy specialist with the Underground Safety Board. Welcome to our Unmarked Lines workshop. Before we begin, our Dig Alert staff member, I believe Jim, will be, do take off? Or safety briefing?
All right. On the screen, you will see marked in the center of the screen is where we are. We have two exits in this building, one in the front that you came in, one right here in the back. In case of an emergency, we will exit the closest exit that isn't blocked. In this case, it's this one. If it's blocked, we will go out the front. The meeting area is in the back, closest to the freeway, where there are no buildings that could endanger us. If that's blocked, you will be instructed at a different meeting area where we will meet in case that becomes an issue.
Thank you very much. Oh, there we go. So I'll provide a quick overview of today's workshop. First, we're going to be hearing some welcoming remarks from our board chairman, Bill Johns. Then we'll go over our workshop goals for today before we get into the discussion questions, which we're hoping for a lot of feedback from our stakeholders. And then we have three main topics of discussion: communication practices, how operators identify an unmarked line, and how unmarked lines really impact excavators' projects, before we'll have some closing remarks by Member Johns. For anyone who is attending online, we've got a QR code that is on your screen now that will link directly to our notice and agenda for this meeting as well.
Okay, well, good morning and thank you all for joining us today. I'm Bill Johns, and I serve as the Underground Safety Board Chair and a member of the Unmarked and Abandoned Lines Committee. Today we are hosting this workshop to gather information from stakeholders about the process for identifying the owner or operator of unmarked lines. The intent of this workshop is to gather information from excavators, operators, locators, and other stakeholders in the excavation industry about their experiences with the processes that happen between the moment an excavator finds an unmarked line in the field to when the operator identifies the line as belonging to them, as well as what happens in the cases where the operator of the unmarked line cannot be identified. Information gathered in this workshop will be used to inform the board's development of safety standards for communication practices regarding unmarked lines. Okay, and so this workshop is gaining a better understanding of the process, is aimed at gaining a better understanding of the processes involved in identifying the owners or operators of unmarked lines that are found in the field. We have several objectives for today's meeting, including: one, gaining a better understanding of the communication practices that occur between excavators and operators after an unmarked line is discovered; two, learn about what technologies, records, and processes operators rely on to identify whether an unmarked line is theirs and how operators update and share their records; and three, hear from excavators about how unmarked lines impact their projects and excavation safety practices. I will now turn it back to Ms. Nguyen to lead the discussion section.
Okay. Thank you, Member Johns. So first, we want to hear about the communication practices that happen between excavators and operators when an unmarked line is encountered. And when we're talking about unmarked lines, we're not talking about abandonment processes by operators, but when an excavator is digging in the field and they encounter something that was not located and marked, what happens? So our first discussion question is, what does communication look like between excavators and operators after that unmarked line was discovered by an excavator? what are the communication practices that excavators use to communicate that they've found an unmarked line, and how do operators communicate back with excavators. For those attending in person who wish to provide a comment, please raise your hand and state your name and organization. For those that are attending online, you may enter the public comment queue. To raise your hand, you dial *5. When your name is called, you may unmute yourself using the microphone button or dialing *6. Any public comments from our attendees about?
And anybody feel free
Yeah.
to talk here too, it's not
Yeah,
limited to online.
we're here to learn about what happened. Yes.
Brian Davidson with Shell Pipeline. Doesn't happen a whole lot. Typically, we mark our abandoned lines, and if we get the ticket, we're gonna respond. But we do have instances up in the SJV and other times where a line would be discovered by someone doing a job that wasn't marked. They call our control center, or they'll call the numbers on the dig alert tickets. We'll get a phone call, we'll look at the ticket, we'll send somebody out, or we'll typically through phone calls, that's if it gets discovered in the field like that, send somebody out, we'll pull up maps, or we'll point them in the right direction, we'll pull up who may own that line, and through the information we can find, we'll just, usually a phone call, emails.
Can I ask a follow-up question on that? So is it the excavator is usually just calling directly the operator, and then it goes through a phone tree of figuring out?
If it goes to the control center, which it should in that instance, if they have our 866 number, 800 number, it's gonna come to myself or the person on call.
And then when you get it, how quickly are you able to determine, hey, this isn't ours, this is somebody else's?
It depends on the area. If it's here in Southern California, we got it real quick. If it's unknown areas or the records are terrible, which we all know, how, some of these lines are pushing 100 years old. Many people are out of business. We're only good as our information, our records that we've kept. So it depends on the area, to be honest with you. If it's here in SoCal, I got it. We got our abandoned lines and our idle lines mapped out good.
One of the big challenges that we hear about is an excavator has to treat every line as active.
That's correct.
And so we hear that an excavator will come up on a line, and then they will call back to the call center, which will create a ticket, and it notifies the operators. And so we want to flesh out many steps in the process, but one of the questions that we're really, what does the operator do to determine it's theirs or it's not? And so it sounds like in Southern California, you know your territory really well, so if it's in that area, it could be ours and maybe it just wasn't marked, and so you look at old maps or records to determine.
Right.
And then do you report back to the call center, or is that all with a verbal phone call of just, hey, it's not ours?
It depends. Most of the time, yeah, verbal, and we will forward maps to help the contractor out.
Oh, that's helpful, thank you.
So, yeah, we have done that, so getting a little bit off topic, but if we get a request for abandoned lines, I'll just send maps. Give them. Now, some of the maps for the past, things have been removed, things have been cut and capped all over the place. And like I said, once again, documentation is everything. We don't always have some of the documentation from the 60s, 70s, things aren't even there anymore. They've been removed and the records weren't that great. So sometimes it's even a challenge for us.
Now, stepping back to how it's discovered, now, there's a myriad of operators that are, excavators that are gonna discover it. So you have a large excavation project, you can have a small, excavation process, but somebody's discovered, they've got a ticket, they're doing the process, and now they've, dug down and okay, they've marked out everything, this isn't marked, and so we know it doesn't make sense. So then that first call, which I see it needs to go back to the ticket. So basically that's the first communication is, because you don't know to call Brian and Shell, if you do, you can, but that's kind of bypassing what I think we're getting at here. So we want to have that process to say, goes back to the ticket and say, we have something here that's not, doesn't make sense. And so that's when the ticket's gonna send out to everybody saying, hey, did you mark everything? Is it, and get everybody to kind of scratch their heads and look. And so, I guess that's a step. So is that?
That is true,
Yeah.
but if it's a show, but a lot of times, we're right next to the Chevron, right next to the Crimson guy, so we'll all just communicate. A lot of times the calls just come direct, but it should, in theory, go straight to the ticket, and it has done that as well. Then we get the more notifications, and the right-of-way tech will respond. But the few times that this has happened, I've gotten direct phone calls, our on-call guy has gotten direct phone calls, simply because we have a relationship with some of these contractors, and the guys doing the work. They know our live line's right there. So, hey, do you know, just as a courtesy, we try to help.
How about you guys? How do you, somebody calls up and you're getting,
Yeah, they'll, usually Metropolitan Water District. Usually we submit a ticket, do another ticket, and then it'll say in the comments, hey, I found something, I'm not sure whose it is, it could be water, and, so, we'll either go out there in person, or, call them, a lot of times they'll leave their number, or, similar to what he says, we have maps and they show where our lines at, so a lot of times we'll look at the map, and if it's really close, we'll go out there. If not, we'll say, hey, it's not us, but I always have to tell them, there's several other water companies in that area, we're not the only one.
That's Tuesday River Metro Water. Fortunately for us, our water pipelines are pretty large in diameter. So unlike the Chevron or Shell, where they have 8, 16, and so forth, we got 45, 54, 8-foot diameter pipelines. So it's easier for us. We don't have like a bowl of spaghetti with pipelines all over. We got major trunk lines, and they're easy for us to identify if we have the specific and the right identification on the ticket.
so I'm just kind of going through the scenario where I've excavated and I found something now. By identifying the size, what it is, and giving feedback information to you guys, that'll help the process going too. So if it's, now I've encountered something that looks like it's just 2 to 4 inch diameter, don't know what it is, but that would eliminate everything for you. You could respond that way and say, everything MWD's, 36 inch and larger.
I'll do the same, I'll do the courtesy of telling them, there's this water company, this other water company in that area, you might wanna reach out to them.
Yeah.
We don't want, even if it's not we don't want nothing to get hit. Not
Yeah.
worth it.
What improves your process, from what's being done now? I mean, you see any shortcomings in currently when you get a message in the field, you get some odd stuff or,
An address helps a lot. I know that
Well,
sometimes it can.
that's going back to your ticket, right? I
Yeah,
mean, yeah.
That helps out a heck of a lot. But I know our stuff runs through our right of way, so there's not an address, so, but, you can give an address, or, don't have to, it's obvious in the street, so that doesn't have an address. But just say across from this address, that's very helpful.
Well, I guess to pick on the audience here, now I would go to the locator and say, how do you see this situation?
The more information, like he said, if they could identify certain things, it would help everybody out going through there. Like the gentleman said, no one wants nothing hit. We're in this business and not get nothing hit. And for our guys, even if we'll check maps, we'll still go respond, because even with, like you said, the maps are outdated, depends on what they are. And when we get there, we'll still try to figure it out for the person to say it's not ours and kind of lead them the right way. We just don't go there and go like, it's ours, let me get out of here. We'll say like, hey, that's the water guy. We're gonna double check our stuff, because we look at it as a second chance. Maybe our guy did miss something. So when we get those calls, like a bad call, like a second chance, we go double check. The guys are, okay, we're good, but we'll spend a couple minutes saying, hey, it's Shell guy, or, whatever, and they come in the right direction. But that information, like you said, whatever you can narrow down when they call it back out, helps a lot. Because sometimes they're not even there.
Yeah,
But we might show up and they're gone for lunch, they be gone for the day, depending on our schedule. So when we get there, more we can narrow it down to much more help.
so it kind of brings up a side question then, you know, going out to the field is kind of a second resort. If you can identify something in the drawings and things like that, is there much time spent into, engineering departments or things like that? How do you, your companies handle?
That, the time kind of depends on the technician, because I have technicians been in their area 25 years, okay? So they wouldn't have to go, they can tell you every Ontario, where we at, they can say this and that over the phone, like they're that good. And we got someone with less experience, they're gonna go out there and kind of double check. And a lot of our locators have relationships with contractors, what they'll just call direct. Hey, Jared, this is this, can you get somebody over here? We'll send a map or a picture, whatever. So it just kind of depends on the technician's skill level in some areas.
As a follow-up to that, it sounds like the way that you guys as operators get notified of this is kind of a hodgepodge, a mix, depends on the situation, between getting that ticket notification versus someone just calling direct. Is that kind of a fair assessment? Is there anything that the board should know about kind of that process, how it works? What, you know, we get to see a lot of the tickets, but we don't know about the stuff that happens, you know, person to person necessarily.
It happens more than you think, because a lot of times they're in their job, they're doing it right there. A lot of old school contractors, foremen, they're gonna call the technician. They don't have time, it's 911, 811, they're not gonna do all of that. You know, they will, but they're not used to that. They're used to like boots on the ground right there. They'll give us a call direct. A lot of those things won't show up in no stats or nothing. And our guy, he's in the area, got a relationship, he'll just go. It's costing us, but we'll just go. He'll go over there and just double check and, you know, keep those relationships going.
I agree with that. However, I would like to see it through the ticket because we have documentation.
Totally.
For legality reasons and just, if I get questioned about it a week later by someone different, oh, yeah, I sent Garcia down there, well, where was it documented?
We'll give you the deposition of business.
Was it said? Yeah.
Yeah, what was said, what was responded to, why did you do, you know, if it goes to the ticket, we have the documentation.
Do you see, kind of, I'm leading this way, but I was thinking this all along, but do you see if there was a unknown line, like a form or something that the excavator hits, and just a standard thing that you would see as a operator that said, okay, she identified the size, location, throws a picture on it, something like that, as a process, you think that would be beneficial, for you to, you know, get feedback from and then now bringing in one call, I mean, coming up with a feedback response like that, would that be possible, and would it be useful?
It would allow us to respond with a timestamp and fact, instead of just, if something was to happen later on, you have your proof right there, or, you know, hey, I determine this is not my line, and if it turns out to be, it cuts out all the mush, you know, the muddy waters, to be honest with you, yes, that would work, especially for auditing purposes.
Okay.
I have a question about the contacts. Are you seeing, when excavators contact you directly, are you seeing them contact you directly based on the contacts they have gathered with years of experience with your locators, or off the contacts that we send on the ticket, or a mixture of both?
Mixture of both.
Mixture of both. Both, is it? Because we send the emergency number, which I don't think would really get them to the right person,
Right.
but is it more so that they just have this rapport with your people in the field, that they know who to contact?
Yes, if they have the report, they go straight to them. If not, they go through the contact number, which will then go through me or the person on call. So it goes, but like you're saying, they have those guys that have the rapport, the 25-year guys in the field.
Right.
Those guys talk all the time, so they just cut out the middleman and go right to them.
Right. I mean, we currently do the exposed ticket, which is an unmarked, unmarked found line, that we do ask the size, the color, what the material is. I would think that that's very beneficial for you to know that, if it's a plastic line, it may not be water, gas, you might be able to clear those faster if it was running through us versus them contacting people directly later. And that would solve your problem, but I don't know how you break the cycle of habit, especially if they have these relationships that they've had for 20+ years. How do you break that habit?
It's actually getting better because everyone is getting more visible. You go out, so I think a lot of the countries, they starting to use it more, feel more comfortable with it, things like that, to get more on that side. But as far as breaking, some of that is just,
That's the hard
take
part.
time.
Yeah.
Because the new is coming in, so they're gonna draw that, but the older guys is just instinct.
It is.
Water spraying up, you're not calling nobody but him.
Exactly.
You know, you don't got time for that. Yeah,
Yeah.
seriously.
It is.
So,
It's breaking that habit.
yeah, it's a break the habit.
Mhm.
Instinct.
But having a set process, it seems that helps refine stuff, because
Right.
I think you said you're doing more with less people in the business, and I think you do have to refine it and stuff,
And I just got a comment from someone listening on the webinar to ask folks to speak up, because the room is mic'd, but some folks are having a little bit of a hard time hearing the discussion in here. Yes.
What I'd like to see is more communication between the individual who calls in the ticket and the person that they have in charge on the actual field. Because I've been out to job sites a couple of times where I asked them, did you read the comments that I installed in the response? They're like, what comment? I was like, I should be here for standby when you're doing your exploratory potholing. I said, I'm catching you guys out here doing your potholing, and you guys never called and requested a standby. You know, oh, well, I have to get in touch with the people in the office, and this happened more than one occasion with different contractors. So it's kind of upsetting that, you know, I'm doing all this work, you know, typing in everything and putting my contact number and our guidelines, hyperlink and all that stuff, expecting them to at least acknowledge it and read it, and most do it on occasion. But yeah, sometimes it's like the office of the individuals who are calling, they don't pass all the information, like, well, you need to contact this individual for standby during your pothole. You know, I'd like to see more communication between whoever's making the call, 811, and whoever they're handing that information to. This is your job, we'll handle it.
That's the piggyback on him, that's the real breakdown, because a lot of contract companies, the person who is making the call, that's all they do. They need to train their excavators to kind of bring it together, because a lot of excavators don't even understand what's going on. They don't do a ticket, you ask them for a ticket, they don't even have a ticket, they just pull up a number, they don't know nothing about the ticket description. We'll go to jobs and that's the wrong place. We tell them, like, it says Northwest Corner, we're bonded by law, Northwest Corner. We're over here, where's the ticket? Oh, they do that in the office.
Yeah.
They like pass it around, but if they could teach them, like, this is what the ticket means, these are the steps. A lot of big companies, they have one guy, he's calling in hundreds of tickets, and you call him up, and he's, oh, I got 100, let me go check. You know the guy in the field knows nothing about that. And they go, hey, it ain't my job, I'm just here to dig. That would cut down a lot of things.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of what I was saying, different jobs. You'll have a small little one-shop excavator, and you'll have a project that's been ongoing for, 6 months. But yeah, that's a really good point, that having that knowledge of the site knowledge, you need to have somebody that connected the ticket to, so that when you do respond, you're talking to the right people.
I wish more people did what you did, because putting your contact information down is great. My guys complain all the time when we get tickets, like you said, there's a guy someone sitting in an office putting in 100 tickets, we'll call up, and they don't know the form, it hasn't been assigned to anybody yet. So we have nobody to contact on this, we have some questions, we might be able to clear this ticket, we wanna find out when they're gonna pothole, things of that nature, and we have no way of getting a hold of anybody. We got one number that's someone sitting in an office that's entered the ticket, but doesn't know anything about the job. So I like what you're doing, keep doing that, I wish more people did.
I think we've got an online raised hand.
We have a raised hand from Matthew Easinger.
Okay. All right, Matthew, you should be able to unmute yourself and.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
A couple things, like here in Sacramento, we the same way, right? We rely on like the notes in the tickets, and the contact information is crucial. If somebody can say it's 2 inch or 4 inch, we can identify usually beforehand if it's going to be ours or not. But what we typically do is if we assume it's ours, we'll send out a troubleshooter. And if it's abandoned, they can then try to determine if it's de-energized, and if they can, and it's in the way of the work going on, they'll just cut it in the clear and get it out. If it's not in the way, typically we just tell people to just treat it as it's hot, because it's not good practice to cut into hot wire. But if it's detrimental, they'll go take the extra steps. Um, but like I said, it's only if it's in the way. But contact information, I rely on the tickets myself. If a contractor knows me and just calls me directly, I usually just have them call in an amendment to 811 anyways, and ask for me individually. That way, like, I don't know who said it earlier, but the documentation is key. If field calls me or a claims department calls me a month later, I can look the ticket up and see what notes I had on it for that day and what was discovered. But that's typically how we do it here at SMUD.
Okay, thank you.
Good feedback.
All right. Do we have any other public comments on what communication practices look like? All right. So we've kind of talked about this a lot too, but especially if we have any excavators in the room or online that can talk about what steps they take to notify operators. We've heard from the operator's experience how you guys kind of hear about this, but do we have anyone that can really speak to the excavator's experience about what steps excavators take when trying to find the right operator to talk to about whose unmarked line is this? Do we have anybody online?
I've seen no raised hands online.
Can I step back 1 second?
Yeah.
And since that's a great thought we'll move into, but having Dig Alert here and just your thoughts then of having more refined documentation, feedback documentation. I know we do have it, but do you see that as possible, or what's your thoughts on it? Is it like, we already have it, move on, or just your general thoughts about getting this process for abandoned lines more refined?
And Diamond with Dig Alert. The problem seems to be is consistency, getting people to provide us with the information to begin with. We know that our contact information is not necessarily the best. I just got a notice the other day of somebody saying, that person hasn't been here for 5 years. Why do you keep sending them stuff? Because you haven't told us. We don't know. While we think we are the most important aspect of a operator's requirements, because we have a very small area, and we think that we are the most important, that they should tell us whenever anybody changes for their billing, their main contact, for their emergency contact, for, no response contact. We are not, and it's sometimes very hard to do that, to get them to update that. We do try and provide the best information that we have. I think part of the problem also is that there is difference between, there is no true definition of what an abandoned line is in the current government code. And as Jim noted before, on exposed tickets, when somebody says, I've basically found a line that isn't marked and I've exposed it, we do ask for the type, if they can provide as much information as possible. Did you have something else?
Yeah, Jim with Dig Alert, as far as, even though we do have a process and we are doing that, of course, the more documentation provide, the better the
Mhm.
process will be. But we can only provide what is given to us by either the caller or the web user. But, yeah, by all means, the more documentation we can provide, the better the system can be.
Do you think something how to prod the excavator along to get the right information, a form, or say, okay, submit this or something? Do you have that kind of in how it is now? I've never really faced a callback like this, but.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's anything that can be added, to what we currently are asking, but I'm also not gonna say that there isn't any. Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
What would, this is Brittany Brandman with Underground Safety Board. So if we were to develop a standard and say, hey, anytime an excavator comes across an exposed line, you must report it to the call center and you must provide this information, what's the information operators would need to help them quickly make that determination? And then what do you think is a reasonable time frame for operators to respond to that exposed ticket to say, yay, nay, or here's a map? So maybe the first one is, what are the fields you would want to help you make that determination?
Diameter of the pipe, for sure.
Depth.
Yeah.
What was that? A little louder, Brian, yeah.
Diameter of the pipe,
Oh,
I also heard depth, yeah.
Helpful.
if they could describe if they could, the type of pipe, coating or non-coating would help me. I don't know about everybody else.
Yeah.
Just looking out for myself here.
well, that's why we're here.
That's why we're here.
For the whole group's,
But, that would help me.
No, but yeah, that's true. Pretty much the description. Sometimes, like, the guy, I'll say, send me a picture.
In that area,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
that's
picture
all
is
the
great.
time.
A picture's good, yeah.
Really good.
Yeah, picture's good.
Jim in particular, I would caution that anything you're looking at would be worded in a way that, like, is what I'm hearing out here is helpful, that wouldn't tie our hands as the contact center to say, I can't do this because you're not providing this information.
Right.
So, yeah.
What are the current fields that the contact center has available so it's not also a potential system change?
Well, it's a free-form field, so
Okay.
we ask the question, and then we put that in the remarks. So we ask color, diameter, material, and then anything in addition that they can provide us. So we can ask anything and put it in there, but I just would like it to where if the caller can't provide that information, it doesn't tie our hands with the way the regulation or anything that you're thinking about is written, to say they must provide or shall provide, and if they don't, then we can't do it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
We've got some online comments.
Yes, we have a raised hand from Matthew again.
All right, go ahead, Matthew.
Is it possible to put those fields in for the people that are doing the updates on the web? Like, is it conduit / pipe, or is it direct buried? If it, one way or the, because that right off the bat would weed out a lot of people. If it's conduit and you're not in conduit, or if it's a pipe and I know I don't have a 60-inch pipe in the area, or if it's direct bury wire, I'm just gonna head there. That I think that might eliminate, but I don't know if that's possible, and I've never submitted one online for an amendment like that, so I'm not sure what it looks like on the online side.
Yeah, Jim was bigger, online for us, I know you're in USA North Territory, but for us, online with this call, it's still a free-form field. We can ask whatever questions we want, and manipulate that text into a free-form field and send to operators, so that's easy enough. And we do that online as well now, but anything in addition to what we're asking now that you feel we should be asking is an easy ask. It's just text in a question.
Is it a wild hope? Sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry, Matt, go ahead. Is it a wild hope?
I was gonna say, is it a wild hope to be able to add pictures to the ticket? Or they call in an amendment and here's the pictures I have?
Currently, yes, we do not have the ability to add pictures to the ticket.
I thought I would reach.
Yeah,
It's something that is coming in the future, it's just not on the roadmap right now.
Fair enough. Thank you.
I think
do you all agree that pictures would be beneficial?
100%, yes.
Okay.
Even the center agrees with that.
Okay. All right, sorry, Brittany.
I think I heard also in the discussion, what would be really helpful is you guys need an actual contact number, a name and contact number of someone who's in the field. So not an office, but somebody who is ever putting in this exposed ticket, they have to have knowledge of that line. Okay.
So I had a question about that. This is Jim Diggler. Someone said that people are putting in new tickets and putting a site contact, and that site contact doesn't even know about it yet. Did I hear that correctly?
What I said, chewing with Metropolitan Water District, what I said was that the person that's calling in the ticket is sitting in the office, and the gentleman or lady who are on the field leading the project, they have no idea as to what the responses were on that ticket. So that's,
What the response is?
yeah, like I said, for instance, if they're gonna do some exploratory potholing, our guidelines strictly indicate that we need to be present.
Yeah.
And I've come across contractors who completely ignored that request,
Okay.
you know, so that's where I was coming, I don't know if that's what you were with that.
No, that's not what I heard, but thank you for clarifying.
All right. Do you have anybody more online? Madigan? All right. Thanks,
I
guys.
very much get that. That happens all the time here in SAC, where whoever the site contact is, they're like, man, I'm still at this job. I finish here in 2 weeks. It happens all the time. It's very rare that the site contact that's on there is actually the one who's paying attention. Usually whoever calls it in will either in all 3 sections put the same phone number and it's from the office, or whoever the site contact is, whether it be the foreman or whatever, they're wrapping up another job and they haven't even seen the plans for that one yet. I would say that happens 10 times a day here, at least. And it's no fault to any one of the centers because I mean, how do they know the information's one way or the other? But that is a huge issue here. If you just started calling tickets randomly, you'd find out more times than you'd like to. That's how it is.
Yeah, that does mess up the system though, if you don't have a site person truly that's gets the communication going, so it's.
Extremely.
Yeah.
And I think that's why a lot of us as like locators or utility operators kind of rely on just the contacts you make with people over the years and the friendships and the working relationships, because half the time if I see the company name, I'll just call whoever I've been speaking with at that company more recent. And 9 times out of 10, I can get better information from them than I will from the ticket, because the intern project engineer submitted a ticket with their name on it because they were told to, and that was it.
Ms. Diamond.
And Diamond with Gaylord. One of the things that the center can do when we do presentations and whatnot is we can push more for the excavators and the site contacts to make sure that, one, that they have the Gaylord app, and then they can bring up the ticket and find out what the EPRs are. Also push to being able to get that information from our website. Again, they put in the ticket number and the electronic positive responses, so your information about getting the, making sure somebody's there for standby, then that's something that the centers have that excavators in the field can use to be able to double check that. It shouldn't just have to be set to the information for the person who put in the ticket. Because also when we send when we ask if they wanna get a copy of the ticket, they get a copy of the ticket, they also get a copy of the EPRs. If they provided a text or email, that can be for the, site contact. And I understand that sometimes people aren't even going to be there yet because they're still on another job, won't be there for, 2 weeks, whatever the situation is. But there are avenues that the excavators, the people in the field, can use to be able to find out what that is.
Yeah, it sounds like we have a lot of things in place that aren't fully being passed along, and that's critical. So education and other ways of repairing some of this stuff, I can see is, we accomplish nothing else, that would be a big accomplishment.
I'm sure with Metro again, I made it a point that when I see something happening, I'll print up that ticket with the member responses and I'll show that to the individual on site, say, look, this is my response, the date and time. You know, why you didn't call for standby is, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So.
Okay.
Anybody online? Okay. So we've talked a lot about this, but how operators,
We do have a raised hand from Alvarado.
okay, we'll go back. Hey, you should be unmuted. Who is it new?
Alvarado.
Alvarado?
Hi there, Dino Alvarado with Torrance Logistics Company, PBF Energy here in Southern California. I just wanted to recap, or actually put my 2 cents in on the tickets that are coming out that have the foreman or competent person. We're receiving a lot that are coming from, I mean, I don't name names, but utility companies, especially for emergencies or US or rush tickets, that the number and the email account that's on there is also, it's coming from a dispatch center. We're trying to contact them and they say, well, we can't give you the number on the foreman because we don't know who the foreman is, or they don't even know anything about the job itself. All they are is just a dispatch to try and connect you to somebody. But there is 9 times out of 10, there is nobody they can connect to. And these are emergency tickets that are coming out. So for us to respond, and then we do our electronic positive response, it's going back, or we also do a contractor EPR kind of notification that goes back to the contractor of the email address that's there. And when that email address is basically for a dispatch or somebody in the office that has nothing really to do about the job itself. So all the information that we notify as email as well is basically useless. It's not going to the person that's a competent person that knows what's going on the job site. So we've been experiencing that for, years. So, if there's something that we could do, like Ann was saying, regards to when they put the USA ticket in, there must be a mandatory competent person or somebody who's going to be on site. And if you don't know, don't put one in then.
That's good input, buddy. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right,
Thanks, Dino.
thank you. So we have this up on the slide deck. How do operators receive and respond to these notifications? We've been talking a lot about kind of the operator's experience. Is there more that folks want to add about communication practices before we move on to our next kind of broader subject? Either in person or online?
Can I just ask, what is a realistic time frame that operators need when they're called, hey, there's a line? What's the time frame? If this was all to go through the call centers with the exposed tickets,
Well, most people want right now, but you can't always.
You can't always do
Yeah,
that.
you can't always do that.
so in a perfect world, what's the realistic time frame?
Well, right now, we're giving, 48 hours to respond to the ticket when it initially comes out, right? I would So if I depend on the workload, I mean, if they can get done immediately, that's an emergency, then that's what we're gonna take care of. But if we got ongoing tickets, other tickets that are open, and we have to stand by, makes it a little more challenging to be in two phases at one time. You know what I mean? So, I'd say, I don't know, it's hard to say.
The location too, there's a killer question.
Yeah, there you go.
Location depends a lot, because in the city, I can get a guy there in 20, 30 minutes. I got guys in Palm Springs, other areas, like you said, some of the workload, it might take them 4 hours, 3 hours, depending. They really gotta be precise, because a guy drives 4 hours and it's an irrigation line.
Mhm.
That kills your whole day.
Yeah.
But the information about identifying it was
They
about
gotta
a lot.
get gas, you know, then there's fueling, so there's a lot of things
Yeah, a
that
lot
they
of
need to
A lot of
consider.
elements.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I would say another 48 hours on top of that. I mean, and if we can get to it within that time, why not?
Are you talking about response to the ticket, or are you talking about actually showing up on the job site? It's two different questions.
Good, you know.
Because I can respond to a ticket,
Mhm.
then like you guys are saying, traffic, things of this nature, manpower, but responding to a request or responding to a ticket is different than showing up to the job site.
So in this, I guess in this scenario, what would be the drivers, what categories would you consider to say, hey, I can close this by just responding to the ticket because I have this information and I know it's not ours, versus, hey, I don't have enough, so I have to drive out there? Like, what information do you get that you feel confident closing it versus, no, we have to roll a truck?
A lot of it has to do with the way you communicate with the contractor. Again, if you develop a friendship and you know how they work, their work ethic, it makes it a lot easier, and I think you guys would agree, that if you have confidence in that individual that you're talking to on the phone, is explaining to you in detail what he sees on site, and you can pretty much get an idea, okay, I know where you're at. So, I mean, there's a lot of variables that really help us, but then again, there's just many that just make it more challenging.
With these gentlemen, it's easier, because certain things, you don't have to line in the backyard. He's not gonna have certain lines up for somebody's grass, but for us, it's everything. We gotta check everything, because we got lines everywhere, what we cover, so it's different.
So you always roll a truck and go out?
Pretty much we have to, because we have stuff everywhere.
So depending on the quality of the information that comes in at the initial is what helps you say, yes, we can close this, or no, we have to go out and visually inspect it. And then Utiliquest, because you guys locate everything, you always have to go out.
Pretty much, in the area, like, I think we got 11, utilities.
So if you were to roll a truck, would 2 days, would 48 hours be enough, or do you need, that's enough?
It should be.
That's helpful, thank you.
Is there anybody online?
Matt.
All right. Is he unmuted? All right, go ahead, Matt.
We typically try to do it depending on scenario, right? If they have like a lane take in and they got to close a lane and we won't be able to see it at night or later on without that lane being closed, we'll go to it. Like somebody said, it really depends on the communication with the contractor, pictures they send you, this and that. But what we've been getting a lot lately too is these boring contractors, instead of potholing the day before, they'll pothole the day that they're gonna bore. So then they call it in and oh, I got a drill rig in the ground and I got to move forward and blah, blah, blah. And I'm not sure if anybody else like it down there in like Southern California or anybody else around here is running into that, but it goes to like somebody else said with the confidence thing. If these are the same people, the frequent flyers that cry wolf 3-4 times a week because they don't want to do their due diligence, it would be nice to have the 48 hours to fall back on, like say, hey, I have 48 hours that I have to do this in. I'm not going to make it today. That would be nice to have something in writing to refer to. But it really depends on the situation when we push it, when we escalate it, if we're going to go that minute or if we're going to go by the end of the day. It's all a variance.
So keeping the discussion on unknown lines now, if you have a guy doing a directional drill and he discovers an unknown line, you're a little late on that one. Seems like.
100%.
It's a different story, but.
No,
these guys are, yeah.
These guys are doing a lot of their own quote unquote locates where they're like, oh, we picked something up here, and they pothole down and they find something. It's not, I guess I should clarify that. It's not when they hit it. It's,
Okay.
they're just doing a little bit of due diligence, but they don't give themselves any time to waste. They've got a drill rig in the ground and they can't stop.
Yeah, so they potholing or trenching that day, and yeah, when do you come out and, yeah, I got you.
Yeah, they kind of expect you to drop everything. That's why I'm a fan of the 48 hours thing. I think anything's doable in 48 hours, but we can push that towards writing. That would be phenomenal. Have something to lean back on as a locator perspective.
All right, well, this does segue into our next section, unless we have more online comments. Okay. Which is how operators, once you are notified of it, the steps that you take to, oh, too far. Do the thing. Are you working on it now? Okay. Yeah. What do you do once you know about an unmarked line? We talked about rolling out the truck, closing out the ticket. How do you know which action is appropriate? Like, when are times that you would just close out a ticket? What other steps do you do in terms of documentation, records you rely on? What is that operator perspective of what happens after you get either that ticket or that phone call saying, I found something, I don't know what it is?
Usually want to talk to the person on the job and, give more positive information. And, depending what they tell you, then you decide if you should go out there. A lot of times you can clear it over the phone, if you got good, good information.
Is that where the issue comes up, where you've got someone at a desk putting in tickets and you can't get a hold of?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's, and a lot of times they'll put the secretary, and she's like, you call and then, oh, I just do the same, so I can't get mad at them, they're just doing their job, but, yeah, it'd be nice. A lot of times they do have the secretary, but then most of the time they'll put the foreman and his phone number, so that's very helpful.
This is Jim with Diggler. When we take the ticket, we ask for the site contact and contact information. But what I'm hearing is a lot of the times that hasn't been assigned yet, or the person hasn't been out there. But when you get to an unmarked line, hopefully that site contact now has knowledge of the job. Is that person still not able to be contacted, or is the number different now?
Well, with that problem, I haven't had that problem. Usually when they do get contacted, they'll give you the person's number.
But it's not the one you're not using it off the ticket, the site contact?
Sometimes, yeah, sometimes it could be different, yes.
So you might have to make 2 calls.
Yes.
Yeah, we sure could use more input from the excavators on this discussion and see.
Definitely, yeah, I think they should be,
Yeah.
beneficial.
Yeah.
I invited a couple on the jobs that I visited, from, actually local companies too. And so I said, they have a little deal, you might wanna go visit.
Off-topic question, do you guys promote this also in different languages, like Spanish, maybe?
We have a survey that is live right now, that is also in Spanish, that is looking at that excavator experience. That I figure the thought process had been, if someone is on a job all day, they might not have the time to come in and be able to talk to us. And we have the ability to have a written Spanish translation more easily than,
Yeah, not only for the operators, but
Yeah.
also for the,
Yeah.
especially homeowners. Those are the ones that are really important. Yeah.
We do have several, or a couple of right-of-way easements,
That goes through people's backyards.
and they're unaware of it.
Yeah, some have no clue. They have no clue,
So 50-inch water main running through your yard, I think I didn't wanna know about it.
yeah, they
Wanted
wanted,
200 GSI.
yeah, they were gonna put a swimming pool right over the line, not too long ago.
And unfortunately, those people weren't aware of Vigilert,
Mm.
so they just started excavating on their own, and they hit the pipe. They just scratched it, you know, they ruined the exterior coating, but it was still something that I had to get the engineers to go and investigate. Couple of houses down, and right about that time, and I think I mentioned this to somebody in Vigilert before, I was advocating to try to have the company I work for send like these yearly mailers to the residents where we have these right of ways, just to inform them. And I got the feedback I got was, well, what if they sell a house? Well, then you just keep on sending those mailers every year on a regular basis.
Yeah.
So whoever gets it, they get that mailer and say, oh, interesting, the real estate agent tell me I had a 50-inch water main in my backyard, but they're telling me I do. And then you can access contacts and stuff like that, and they're aware. And then it also pushes the digger, you know, the concept to call before you dig.
Yeah,
Because a
also,
lot of homeowners aren't aware of it.
yeah, they're not, and also they don't realize what a right of way is, you know, like, yeah, it's your property, but we have 24 access to it, you know what I mean, so.
Well, there is a pretty exhaustive education program, just what you're talking about, that's being implemented. Obviously, it hasn't gotten to everybody, and it needs to be continued promotion. I think that's kind of what we're concluding too. Education's big in every facet here.
Yeah.
But I do see excavators are the ones that benefit from this whole discussion. It's like, you guys are here, and it's like, hey, we'll try to help you out, but you're the guys that found somebody that found a line, and now you're, you know, stopped and.
I have passed out some of your, pamphlets before to several excavators, say, whenever you're taking a break, just go ahead and read this. You know?
Yeah.
Educate yourself, you know, so, and yeah, some of these pamphlets are kind of helpful for me, I pass them out.
Yeah, a lot of times I have to stress, everybody thinks it costs money. I don't know, it's free.
Yeah.
You have to stress that it's free.
It's cheap as
And
shit.
you learn what's in the ground by your house. That's more important, you know, that's something that, so you'll see, if you see some leakage or smell, funny smells, you know who to call.
Well, staying on this unmarked line, kind of learning, education is important, and communication. So getting the parties together seems to be at least two pieces of fruit low on the tree here, so.
I have a different question for the operators. Has this occurred, and if so, is this like a frequent thing or not a frequent thing? Do you ever get the same phone call about the same line from the same excavator? So let's say the excavator exposed an unmarked line, called to try to figure out whose it is, and then they end up calling back saying, I've called all these others, is it yours? Is that a repeat process, or is it usually just one and done?
I've never had, I've never had that problem. They'll usually call me, and then, you know, if I know it's not us, I'll say, hey, there's this water company and this other water company, you know, and, if it's a water line, you know, but, you know, it could be a pipe, you know, most time it could be petroleum, gas, you know, there's a lot of stuff in the ground people don't know about.
Do you wanna, who's, online?
Matt.
All right, Matt, go ahead and unmute yourself.
This just kind of goes back to the like the getting a hold of people when they come in. Not to skip over Brittany's question, but is there a way? I guess this question's for the call center. Anne, I'm sorry, not reaching as far as the pictures, but is there a way when somebody calls in like a damage exposed, you can require them to add a new contact phone number? Because a person in the field that day may be different than the people who've been there previously. So on-site contact is this, like, is there a way to make that a requirement? I know a lot of people submit those as it is, but that would be That would kind of eliminate the trying to figure out who to get a hold of.
Jim with Diggler, actually, Ann and I were just kind of chatting about this, between ourselves. So when people do an emergency ticket, we verify the site contact a second time to make sure that we have it right and that it's a legit person. So we were just thinking, on a damage exposed ticket, what if, you know, when they do that second time, why don't we read back the site contact and have that opportunity for them to change it and update it, since per the regulation, they're required to keep their contact information correct on the ticket. So it's kind of something that we were just thinking about right now. So yes, it's possible, and something that we could probably look at to help this process, because site contacts do change. They're required to keep it up to date. We know they don't. So maybe it's a step we can do to help them keep it up to date, and in turn help the operators get that good contact information.
Yeah,
Sorry.
that would be helpful.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, like the foreman, he'll be gone for the day, and somebody else will come up with it, and now it's somebody else running the crew that day. And it's not that the contact changed, but it's like, who do I get a hold of for this? And if they called it in and they had a spot where they could add that number for this particular situation, I think would be helpful.
For that part, if there's like a contact just for that day, we do that all the time.
Okay.
But what we don't do is we don't verify the site contact is still the same and current, like we do for emergencies, because emergencies are very, you know, urgent, that we really need to make sure that someone can get in touch with someone. We probably should do that for damage and exposed as well, because those are pretty urgent as well.
Perfect. Thank you.
Do you have a site contact and a, you know, ticket contact,
Yes.
opportunity for both? Yeah.
So we have a caller contact, which would be the secretary or whoever's calling in the ticket, because we do need to record who's actually given us that information. And then we do have a site contact.
You know, that's
Two separate.
same for up north too? I mean,
Yes.
Did you want to?
Well, I was just gonna mention about the site contact. I'm true with Metropolitan Water District again. There's been instances where I've gotten tickets and they're within Union Pacific Railroad, and I think I was explaining to you the story. It'd be nice to get an escort contact so we can access those railroad stations or those switch yards, so that we don't put ourselves into any type of danger. Because I don't know if you're aware, they do carry sidearms, and right now, the way people are taking from these trains and stuff, we don't wanna be subject or become on the news that we were accidentally targeted, you know what I mean? So whenever there's, like I said, a lot of information that they know they need to divulge to us on that ticket. Do we need an escort? Who is that escort? Give me a number, give me a name. Is it gonna be rail pros? Is it gonna be somebody from Union Pacific? Stuff like that is important. Site contact is very important.
It is. I'm not sure how we would do that part of it, because it's such a small little form and it's kind of outside of our purview, but the site contact would probably be the one that should be giving you that information.
yeah, if they're working on the site, they should be able to
They should be able to-
accommodate that, yeah.
Because
That's
when
part
I
of it.
show up to the ticket and they're not there,
Right. That's a problem.
you know, it's a problem.
Yeah.
I have a question about that. In those particular cases, is it a normal ticket, or do they ever say, hey, there's like special access needed? Do they tell you that, or do you just show up and that's when you figure out there's special access
It's
needed?
not specified. Like I said, they just, feathers, it's located, it's delineated with feathers. You know, you can't see feathers from where I'm standing, and knowing that those federal laws, federal enforcement, they care, and I'm not gonna deal with that stuff. With a block wall, give me an escort number, that way I can get escorted to the job location, and we can take care of this.
Jim with Diggler, that is just, that's just education on the caller side, that they should be giving us that, because, I mean, HOAs give us gate codes. they give us access
Yeah.
all the time, so the fact that this federal agency or this contractor for a federal agency is not providing that is just uncalled for.
Thank you.
It is. If a HOA can give us a gate code, a contractor for a federal agency can say that there's access issues. Yeah.
Do we have anybody online? I think, do you want to advance it to the break slide? So we've gone over how everybody responds to the notifications, and we are on time for a 10-minute break, or do I have it in here? It's 10 or 15. But yeah, we're about halfway through our allotted time. So if we could take a 10-minute break, we will resume at 11:17.
And make sure you come back if you're online, we need you.
Yes, please, we have more questions.
How many
All right, we are back. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Just to kind of recap where we're at in case we had some new people hop on, we talked about some of the communication practices between excavators and operators. We want to go to the next one. We have currently a live unmarked lines survey. So if we have any excavators that are online and watching and want to contribute but don't want to speak up in a workshop, please take this survey. It will close October 2nd. So your input is incredibly helpful. And then we're going to spend the rest of our time talking about kind of some of the record keeping and updating practices of operators, and hopefully close out with some comments from excavators about how unmarked lines are impacting their work. Hopefully we will get some new voices in the room that can bring that perspective to us. So to start off with record-keeping practices for operators, statute does require updating and amending records as information becomes known. We've heard even today that there can be some challenges with actual record-keeping practices, things that have been taken out of the ground. So when determining whether or not an unmarked line is one of yours, what are the kinds of things that you are looking at? Are you consulting maps, looking at old easements that you might have, franchise agreements with municipalities? What information do you have that you are working with and relying on to figure out, is this line one of yours or not? Yeah.
Sure, with Metro, we have a program, on Google Earth, Google Maps, or was it Google Earth, where it identifies our pipelines throughout our area of responsibility. However, if we find it questionable, something may have changed, maybe they widened the street or something like that, we call our survey team out and we do a survey request, and they'll come and they'll mark it for us.
Brian, can I call on you because you were talking about
Yeah, I'm
maps
sorry.
earlier?
Solve another problem. So it's true, we use our maps, knowledge, some of the historical knowledge of some of the guys that have actually done the jobs records. Now, for easements, licenses, and permits and stuff like that, that wouldn't be a day of finding a line. We're talking about if we get a project sent to us, we send it to our encroachment department, because to pull up the franchise, the easement rights is just a mess. Those things were negotiated a very long time ago. We have land people that have problems finding some of those. Some we got them, some we don't. So that would be more of a project or encroachment request. So as far as if it was discovered on site, we're gonna go off of maps.
Do you have anybody online?
There are no raised hands.
Okay. Yeah.
Raul, Metropolitan Water District. Yeah, our, we obviously use the maps, but, like the easements, licenses and all that, our engineer department handles that. So, depends how deep they want us to dive in, we'll ask for help from them.
Utilize our resources.
Exactly.
So speaking for the engineers now, there is, issues with your maps and things like that, and especially with the oil companies, the names change every couple of years. You get different business cards printed, and I should have gotten the business card printing business long ago, because these companies change in ownership, and, but there is, I've seen it in a lot of places where the incentive to hide your lines, or at least not document them and keep them on your records, is there because of, franchise agreements and costs and things like that. Ownership issues are kind of muddied and things like that. So, so that is a problem, of not wanting to expose it, but at the same time, you want to do the right thing. So, have you encountered anything like that, or what's your, you've been in the field and stuff, do you know something belongs to somebody way back, or the companies went bankrupt and things like that? What's your field or thoughts on that when you see something in the field like that?
you guys encountered anything like that.
But now, you do have your old records of lines abandoned, things like that, and,
It's rare, I'm sure with Metro, it's rare that we have an abandoned line.
yeah, you guys are big stuff, you
Yeah.
can't just,
It's there
Yeah.
for the next.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, we do have reroutes, and it's very short, very few. So those are identified with the circle and the A.
doing the Circle A, yeah, that's,
Yeah, it's rare that we'll have an abandoned line.
I have a question, this is Brittany with the Underground Safety Board, I have a question about maps, because we've heard, or I've heard, is there multiple sets of maps? What I mean is, I've heard there's a map for the utility operator, and then there's a map that they give the locator. And they might not all have the same information, is that your experience?
Brian, Michelle, we only have one set of maps if we're lucky. From the older stuff, yeah. We got one map, that's it. We don't have separates for other people. You get all the information.
I do find that over time, there was a big transition when CAD came in. So, I mean, truly, we all know in this area, there's, lines dating 80 years old back and such. The handwritten ones were the maps, and then there was kind of an effort to go CAD, and so they took like these beautiful old hand-drawn drawings, and they scanned them, and then they redraw them and stuff, and now that they have nice, solid black lines and things like that, the CAD drawings are kind of accepted as being better than truly the originals, and not necessarily the case, but from that, came extra lines and stuff where drafters would put on, it might be a curved line that now became another line and things like that. So there's a lot of interpretation and more documentation junk that is kind of on a lot of the old maps and stuff. So it's hard to, keep your maps up to date, even just on that alone, much less than doing a relocation, or like you alluded to, they widen the street, well, you guys are, have a department that go out and document it, but a lot of, smaller companies or old lines, they don't. So updating and recognizing the value of your maps, I guess that's a question for the group too. What do you do to verify and trust, and do you see errors in your maps and stuff?
This is in fact our next question. Yeah, when you find out that an unmarked line was yours, but it didn't appear in your maps or records, or whatever reason it wasn't located, how do you update those records? Yeah, exactly what Chair Jones was asking.
That's actually, there's what she said was actually true about the maps. Because back in the day, it wasn't like a priority to customers. It would be what they have, but sometimes certain companies that they had their own maps, and they would give us these other maps. What happened was we started meeting with the actual field people from the company like AT&T, and we had a damage came. He's fixing it, and he would show me his map. I showed mine, totally different.
Yeah.
But what happens, a lot of companies now, they're updated. They're seeing the value of the maps. Where, like I said, it used to be, they would be like, yeah, the map, my guys got the better ones because they consider doing more of the job for AT&T. When these damages start rolling in, the prices start, then everybody start coming more close together. Like some companies, they'll update their maps. And if my technician goes to a job, there's something there that's not on the map. We make a call, and they send it to the customer, and they recognize that, and they'll send an update, or they constantly update maps. So that's really getting better when it used to be. So they're really working hard. They see the value of it. Where, like I said, back in the day, they just wasn't no value to it.
Right.
Do you have anybody online?
It's kind of side subject, but it is important, because I think when you're trying to find what an unknown line is, you're going to go back to the old archives and go back to the root.
That's funny. I got some older texts. It's kind of off subject, but they have like original maps. They won't depart quick. But the funny thing is, we'll have the updated map with the company, customer updated, we got updated, but the old tech guy, he'll have that map, and his is actually better than that one. but no one says it out loud, but they won't give those maps up.
Yeah.
I mean, they guard them.
Road and crossing water. We do have, you know, our maps on Google Earth, the water line, but I also keep a Thomas guide
Mhm.
with overlays.
Yeah.
And I
That was
guard
good.
it.
They
I'm a
guard that.
I've been 33 years there. So I'll hand it, when I leave, retire, I'll give it to the, but,
There you go.
He's gonna take care of it.
I have some in my truck, Thomas
Yeah.
Guy overlays, why just use Thomas Guy?
Yeah, and these kids, they don't know how to use.
They ain't never heard of that.
They don't have a
know what it
clue.
is. A4.
Yeah, yeah. So, I do have and it's, so I have one from Riverside out to San Bernardino out this way. It's empty lots, you know, down their houses, for cities. Yeah, it's interesting.
Well, I guess, yeah, maybe the precursor question to this is, how often do you encounter something that wasn't on your map that belongs to you?
I never have, personally, you know.
Not a lot.
Yeah,
Okay.
yours are big, so yeah. it's
Yeah, they've been there,
documented.
they build around it.
But I would think you're dealing with communications now, they're shooting those in all over the place
All the time,
yeah.
all the time. They're doing a huge job. And a lot, he had one job he did in Orange County years ago, when Clinton was in president, and this project did the whole Orange County, they all this stuff down. They scrapped it, never used it.
Yeah, so it's in the ground and there's maps or something, but
Yeah, it's in the
like
ground.
it's
It's
never built,
fiber
so.
to the house, and it
Yeah.
just stopped. We got the funding or whatever. We
Yeah.
go there now, those lines are still there, but we don't touch them
Yeah.
because it's not, ours.
We've heard about, lines that get cut and caps. Does that go into the record keeping, and how does that process work?
We don't get updates.
Okay.
I just leave it there.
I think it's in the ground and not documented is what my findings. Well, we do have probably some excavators
Yeah, we've got,
online. Any input on that, or just
Yeah.
what you find out in the field and in practice of undocumented stuff?
do we have,
Have a rate from Matt.
all right, is he unmuted? Yeah, go ahead and, whenever you're ready, Matt.
When we have our abandoned stuff is mapped as a layer, the details on it are gone, so like for me particularly, I can't tell if it's 1 wire, 3 wires, 4 wires. I know that it's there, I just don't have the details on it. But and they also cut it away from the transformers where it goes in and out of, so it's hard to tell which way it's coming from, where it's going. So there's not really anything to update. Whenever we replace wire, it's there as a layer. It's just hard to tell the accuracy and the details of it. So there's nothing really to update per se, I guess.
Do you ever go back and note, like, hey, yeah, it's on our abandoned layer, in this spot where I found it, there were 3 out there, or is it just like, hey, there's abandoned in the area?
Well, I usually will talk to the contractors if it's like if it's a major project where they're going to go into the yard multiple times. I'll make sure that they're aware of some abandoned, like back a walk or something. But like I said, I can't even locate it, so I make them aware that it's there. It's usually in joint trench, so a lot of contractors up here, I'm fortunate with, they're very diligent, and if they're pothole in like a joint trench area, they'll go a little bit deeper, and usually they'll come across my stuff and just let me know they found it. But I can't add any details to our map side of it, the GIS side of where they found it, because it's, as far as we're concerned, it's not a liability anymore.
But it does impact your contractor when he's working there, so it's good information for him.
It does drastically. But like I said, I would love, I go back in my own like kind of mental notes. I would love to be able to say, okay, they found it here 8 feet back a walk, and just kind of have something to reference moving forward, but we just don't have that ability.
All right, thanks, Matt.
Yeah, thanks.
that kind of actually leads into, you know, we've heard from some folks that there are incentives, financial tax or, you know, like liability, reasons to take those abandoned and out of use lines out of records and maps, that detailing. Can anyone speak to kind of shed more light on what that looks like, why that is? You know, maybe why SMUD doesn't consider these abandoned lines a liability, and that detail from the layer, the abandoned lines layer does get removed from the maps. Anybody online new?
Matt,
Huh?
you have Matt.
All right, go ahead, Matt. Thank you.
Can you ask? I caught the tail end of that. I had a car drive by me.
Yeah, so just asking about kind of what those incentives might be. You know, you had mentioned that, you know, if the detail in that abandoned layer kind of gets removed because it's just considered not a liability anymore. Can you kind of talk about a little bit more why that is, what that looks like?
I guess I should rephrase the liability part. The problem is because they cut it like out of the transformers and everything else, there's physically nothing we can do to locate it. There's no ends. It's not the circuit's not completed anymore, so it just becomes something that like it's completely de-energized. So I guess I shouldn't say liability as much as there's just physically nothing we can do to locate it besides just tell the guys that it's in the area. If you come across it, let us know. So that's why I don't think that the big push to add it into the details, because our live maps are so focused on what we're using currently that it might, you know, we could probably find as-built or something, I guess, but there's no real way to go in there and narrow it down. There's no way for me to even come close to locating it, which is why I just send a crew out there to verify it's de-energized, and if it is, they'll just cut it out of their way. Does that help?
Yeah, do you ever note that it's been, you know, sorry.
I'll note on
Taking
the
note.
I'll note on the 811 ticket that I sent a crew out to cut it in the clear for them.
Okay.
Do we have any contractors that can address that about just the records they find in the field and on projects, and what would be helpful when, you know, from experience, I'm facing unknown lines before, if just any insight to what they ideally would like to have seen, or what would save money, or what we could be doing to provide something better.
All right, looks like we don't have anybody on the webinar. Oh, we just got a raised hand. Todd? Okay. When are we? All right, Todd, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Thank you. Todd here with Doty Brothers. Yeah, you know, that's a good question on what can be done better to where you have you're doing a USA dig alert coming out there, and then you find some unknown lines. I mean, you're coming across them all the time, and the one thing that really helps out is somebody that keeps the records of what's there in place. Like when you call them and say, "Ah, you're not marked," and somebody comes out and goes, "Yeah, I know that's my line," but I don't know. That's a tough one.
Does it impact you bidding projects and things like that if you feel like you have more information? You know, if the record drawings show abandoned stuff and all, is it helpful, or would you consider that as making things better or give you more confidence?
Oh, yeah, if it's on the drawings and you've got abandoned lines on the drawings and you know that you're gonna deal with 2 or 3 of them, then you know that you're gonna have to set aside a little bit of investigative work and talking to all the oil operators and see who uh, to confirm whether it's their line or not, or it's abandoned, and how we can do the confirmation. If that's all in the bid process, then that's all up front. We know what we can do to handle this. It's a really, it does cost a lot more money on the project itself when you're excavating and have discovery of a line. Then you don't know if it's live or abandoned, so it really shuts down to sit there and take the due diligence to make sure you got you know, a safe approach of figuring out whose line it is and whether it's abandoned, empty, and safe to remove and get out of the way.
Kind of backtracking our meeting earlier, we had discussed the process of encountering an unknown line. Can you go through your kind of stance or, company, if you find something, just what the process is and just kind of walk through that?
Yeah, some of the process varies, but the general process is if we find an abandoned line and the and if there was something that needed to have it out of the way because it was not supposed to be there, we shut the job down. We sit there and revisit all the USA phone numbers. We call everybody back out there and try to figure out whose line that might have been abandoned. And if nobody claims it, then usually we then ask for a change order to then do the investigative. We will put a high pressure hot tap valve on there. We'll hot tap it, confirm that it's empty. This is only when it's been that, nobody's lines there. They have no idea whose it is, and it's got to be an abandoned line that needs to be removed. Then we'll treat it like it's a live line, 1,000 psi pressure, and we'll hot tap it with the 1,000 psi tapping valve, and we'll confirm that it's empty. And we usually have to have a vac truck on there just in case that there's liquids, and then it's determined what we're going to do for the abandonment on it. And usually if it's an abandoned line or whatnot, then it's just a 1/4-inch plate that's put on there. If there's no LELs and whatnot, then it's just a dry ice real quick and put a 1/4-inch flat plate inside the pipe with a fillet weld, let it breathe out and then abandon it in place, and then continue on the work. And that's probably about it. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. How about the process of response on operators that come out and stuff? I mean, do you think the system works? What would improve it?
The response I would say is pretty good for the most part, especially since we know most of the operators. So most of the time, it's we can do quick calls around it to get some insight on it. But as far as going through the operators that are named on the USA ticket, it's sometimes they might not get out there for the later day or the next day, which I would say usually you have a response with everybody within 2 to 3 days. Then it usually takes about 2 to 3 days to sit there and be all done with it, going, this is nobody else's line, nobody's taking responsibility for it. Now we can see what we want to do with our partner that we're working for, of how we want to move forward on investigating the pipe and removing it.
Good. I was going to just, as far as the USA contacts, your personal feeling to, do you find there's a good contact list, or would you, are there a lot of numbers you have to go through to find the right person, or how's that from your standpoint?
Yeah, I would say Greg just walked in here too, but he didn't really quite hear the question. But he was asking, how good is the response when we have come across an unknown line and we're going back through the USA numbers that are provided, and then how long does it take to get to these? I know of my experience, I would say it's probably 60% of the time we need to be transferred over to somebody else that's actually really, might have more knowledge of that particular area or something to that effect. We usually end up getting to hold of somebody else. The other 40% would be that person knows right there on the spot and says, hey, I'll come out there right now myself. It just depends on the size of the operator that we're calling and their pecking order that's internal.
As far as my experience goes, it's quite tedious. It's not always that helpful. What's on the USA? They can go through multiple phone calls, multiple days down in the port, especially at Port Long Beach. A lot of things that are willed back to the port become a huge issue because nobody knows who they really owned them, where the past was, or who been transferred to. So it's quite tedious trying to find the owner of these lines that are unmarked or unknown when we come across them. And the USA can be, I don't think it's as helpful as what it should be. But you just have to go through the process that's in there and call every number and usually double check, triple check, have them come out and verify and just make sure visually, because they'll tell you online, over the phone, no, it's not ours, there's no conflict. And then they get out there and they go, oh, you know what? This looks like our line. So it's I don't think there's a really good process currently, but it is the process. That's what I found in the past.
And any improvements you can see, just top of your head improvements?
I think it's just documentation. I think once if the port takes something over, or somebody takes an asset over, the documentation of it.
Not just the fact that they took over, but what it was before.
Yeah.
Whether it was
and how it was abandoned
and what's in it. Is it filled with slurry, or does it have inert gas in it, or is there LELs, or is there actually products still in there? Because sometimes it seems like every once in a while we'll come across a line that's abandoned, but it was treated as idle, so it still had product in it.
Mm-hmm.
But it was I'm air quoting here, abandoned.
Yeah, so we're addressing them as unknown, but yeah, that's kind of what we're getting at. How about non-pipeline stuff? I mean, you run into conduits and things like that. Same process, or what do you do as you encounter something?
Yeah, you're on. Go ahead.
Okay.
Pick that one.
Yeah, that was a way more difficult answer. It's we came across some fiber optic lines that were quite large. Nobody wanted to claim them. They said that, AT&T, I can't remember, Verizon down the port, nobody wanted to claim them. They said they weren't theirs until I completely uncovered them. The port wanted us to cut them out of the way. And I can't remember which company came out and finally said, you know what, I think this is our line. After looking at it, we thought we moved this over somewhere else, but we didn't. But that process of that's very delicate, because that can cause a lot of problems. So that's a hard answer, really. To be honest with you, each situation for me has been way different. Best way is, I don't know, taking it out when they know it's bad or not going to be used anymore, removing it right then.
Yeah, I think usually the challenge has always been that you got a schedule to keep, or you got a milestone to sit there and make to, and then you catch up to these, and then these unknowns and people come and go, no, it's not mine, and walk away, and then you waste another half a day, and then they come out the next day and they go, no, I don't think that's ours. Or so the documentation was better and the records are kept, and and they did their due diligence. They would have come out and said, yeah, this is ours. And all right, now we're moving forward. What are we doing? What's the new scope moving forward? How are we going to go around you, or whatever? But if it was just, you had all the time in the world, then it probably wouldn't be that big of a deal. Hey, we'll come out tomorrow and discuss it again. Well, meet you the next day. But I would say the importance of the project's usually not weighed on the line markers, as far as schedule goes.
All right, well, thank you. No, that was informative for me and needed to get more of the contract. We have a lot of operators have been talking, and so it's good to get the other side of the picture.
Well, do you have anyone else on? Okay. Well, that also moves us into the impact of unmarked lines on excavator projects. Sounds like we now have excavators on the line who can kind of talk about their experience. So for to anyone in the room, but especially if you have knowledge of it, how long do excavators tend to wait And what steps do they take to figure out who the operator is of that unmarked line before they have to proceed with the project, if they can't figure it out? I don't know if anyone in the room has experience on that. I think we've got all operators in here. Do we have? Okay. Is it unmuted? All right, Todd, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, so I touched on this earlier, but yeah, basically, when we come across a unmarked line and before proceeding with the project, it usually takes three days to, depend on, how simple the answer is. But if it's, a couple of people are challenging whether it was theirs or not, a non-marked line, it's anywhere from 3 days to a week to before you feel comfortable enough that you have all the information that is correct and 100% accurate before you move forward with it, whether you're going to hot tap it, confirm it, or it's definitely a deadline and we've got the two ends and we know it's completely isolated and there's nothing in between. Go ahead and cut it and get it out of the way. Just depends on the knowledge of the project itself and the operators around it, and if there was one operator says, yeah, this is our old line, we've got it isolated right here, it's right next to, we were 6 inches away from this other operator's line, and we go, yep, everything's, the whole storyline all matches. We know we have the two dead ends. You're confident with that, 100%. Then it could be just, maybe 2 days and you're up and running and off and running and continuing.
As far as my answer would go on this one, it really does vary, but generally doesn't impact the job complete stop. It's just going to be a small delay in that particular area on the majority. Most lines don't impact you from continuing digging the rest of your trench. But it will impact particularly that area for a certain amount of time. There's quite a bit of time invested with investigating who might be the owner of that line, but that's usually done by management, superintendents, or above, sometimes foremen. But for the most part, I'm going to say, you're going to have a couple hours of delay initially, and then a couple of days of investigating and waiting to find out how you're going to remediate the problem or remove the line.
Mm-hmm.
And then, on that's the majority. There are some that have been major impacts, major larger lines that completely, move your whole line because it's in your whole trench. That's a whole different story. You have to move. That could be a larger delay where if you have to move your whole line over feet and find out if there's clearance for that. But on the majority of these, I'm going to say you're going to have a couple hours of delay initially and then hours of investigating.
As part of that investigating and notifying, I'm not sure if you guys were on at the beginning of the webinar, but we had some operators talking about on their end, preferring to get that exposed damaged ticket and that notification about it, but also sometimes just getting a phone call from someone they know. Can you kind of shed some light on those steps you take to try and get in touch with somebody when you're figuring that out? If you guys use the ticket system, who the contact is, if you're just calling the number on the ticket, kind of what's your perspective on that?
Most operators would just use what's the numbers that are on the ticket. Oh, no, I'm sorry, operators, contractors. We would call the operators that are on that USA ticket.
However, if we do have a phone number for the Pacific line rider that's assigned to that,
Yeah.
then we'll just immediately call him and go, hey, this.
So as a port contractor, we have a lot of contacts. I have a repertoire of people that I would call outside of that USA number list that's going to be called out. I have a lot more contacts I'm going to be able to reach out to specifically for those owners, but not everybody digging has that.
I got a question for you.
Yeah, thank you.
And speaking in general, not your company, but as you find in the field of contractors, when they encounter a known line or something, how do they address it? Do they, basically, if I was the operator, I'd be not wanting some guy continuing with his backhoe digging my line. hand digging it and how much they expose and things like that. Can you kind of go into what you kind of see in the field of, if you did encounter something you weren't sure of it, what would you do as far as exposing and any precautions you take when you address it?
Depends if we're already hydrovacing, or we're hand digging or mechanically digging. We would just typically, we're gonna treat it the same as if it's a live item, because we don't know. And it's always we're always gonna err on the side of cautiousness with our crews. Our crews are always taught that it's live until we know it's dead, or it's pressurized, whatever we wanna call it. If it's conduit, we treat it as if it's got live wire in it. If it's a direct buried line, we definitely gonna treat it like it's live or doing its job it's intended to do until we can verify. So we treat every line as if it's live. Is that the best? That's my best answer.
And you find that in the field too? I mean, other contractors, not so much yours, but
No, not everybody follows that rule, but there's a lot of companies that just dig and they are looking at production. But we have had so many experience with mishaps and we have experience down in the certain areas that we know are critical. So that's how our crews are taught at Doty Brothers. I can't speak for all contractors. I know there's quite a few of us that are the same. That's how we keep our reputation, but I can't speak for all of them. Of course, I don't. I know that there are other ones that just, they treat it as if it's dead versus live. They didn't know about it. They don't care. They hit a line. They don't even let anybody know.
thank you.
All right, and kind of a similar follow-up, for our excavators, if you've gone through, all these steps, called everybody, reached out to your personal repertoire of contacts, you still can't figure out who that owner is, what is the impact on your project?
Yeah, I think we touched this earlier as well. The impact on it is just depending on the size of the line, your exposure to it. If it's completely on, once you've exhausted everybody that's on the USA ticket that's supposed to be in that area, nobody's taking ownership of it. Then usually before proceeding forward, I usually talk to our client, whoever's going through there, asking for direction. Where do you want to go with it from here? Because initially, really, I don't want to touch it. If it's an unknown line, I don't want to touch it unless I'm directed by my client after we know it's 100%, nobody's live line or whatever. And then if I'm going to touch it, I'm touching it as if it's 1,000 PSI line, and I'm going to, if it's a steel line or whatever, I will follow our measures of what we need to do to hot tap and confirm and evacuate and abandon to get our line through.
Only if it's a conflict.
Only if it's conflict, yeah.
If it's not a conflict, we look to avoid the conflict. If we can go deeper, we go deeper and just drop our line. We have to get, of course, our operators approval to drop their line or raise their line. As long as we can, we have to void a 12-inch clearance minimum, then that's up to the operator that we're working for. But if we can avoid the conflict and not deal with it, if that's what we're to do, that's what we're to do. If we have to address the conflict because it has to get out of our way because we have to be in that location, then that's where we will go to more measures.
Which are both our impacts, right? It costs more money to go down and rebuild and
Sometimes
get
can
it
be,
lower.
right.
And then do your as-built there. Yep.
But if we can avoid the conflict, we do.
Yep.
And if we were to damage the line in the process also, we're going to remediate, we're going to fix it. If we damage the wrap, we're going to fix the wrap on it. If we damage conduit, we'll repair the conduit as like kind.
Yeah, even if it's nobody's claiming it, it's still going to be repaired.
It will be repaired as if somebody's.
Yep. Because you never know, somebody went, that's not my line, and then down the road they come back and go, that was my line. Well, it's a good thing we recoded it.
Yes. Any other comments, follow-up? This is our last question slide. So kind of a,
I have one question for the group. Is there any questions we didn't ask today that we should have?
other stuff you want us to know about this process for identifying unmarked lines that didn't come up in the questions we asked today? Anybody online?
So the goal of why we're meeting is we will be, the Underground Safety Board in the upcoming year will be developing a standard. So this standard is not enforceable, but it is a best practice that we are going to look at, and then over time, if it needs to become something that's enforceable, that is something that the board may consider. So if at any point, our contact information will be up. If you're out working and you think of something, hey, we should have asked this question or given this information, please reach out to us, because that information will help us make sure that we have a standard that works for both excavators and operators.
Yeah. Oh, we have a hand?
Yes, we have a hand from Dino Alvarado.
All right, Alvarado, you should be able to unmute.
Hi there, yes. I got the question to ask is that, as a petroleum company, some of our pipelines in the past have been quitclaimed to the city or the counties. I think a couple of your questions back, what do we do when we have pipelines that have been unmarked? How do we notify, or do we notify the contractor on site? So we will give them a heads up on these pipelines that were quitclaimed to the city or the county, and inform them, just to let them know. We don't put an A or circle around them because it's not our pipeline, and we don't know if they've been abandoned or what the city or the state have or the county has done with these lines, whether they sold them off to other companies and they're used for either fiber optics or what it may be. But I think the question is that these pipelines that are quitclaim, why hasn't the city? It seems like a lot of these pipelines that these contractors are finding are lines that have been quitclaimed to the city or the county, and they do not mark these lines out. So I think a big issue is, or if it could be rectified or have the city, then maybe they need to have locators out to mark these pipelines out themselves. I think a lot of that hassle could be, solved, and especially with the contractors and trying to find out what pipelines are. But I think that's a question that could be asked for the city or the county or even the state on lines that they actually have been quitclaimed to from other companies. What do they do with it, or how do they record those pipelines?
Thank you.
Good point.
Yeah. Do you have anybody else online? All right. Well, I'm going to flip back a couple of slides. So just a reminder for anyone who might have joined us or anyone in the room, here's the link to our survey for excavators. Please forward it along to anyone who might have information that would be helpful for the board on unmarked lines. And thank you all, everyone, for taking time out of your day to come and speak with the board. And this has been incredibly helpful and informative. And we really appreciate everyone's feedback.
And the outcome or the next steps of this process will be discussed at the board's November meeting, which is November 17th. So there's information on our website, which is, can we put that slide back up? EnergySafety.ca.gov. On the front page, you will see the Underground Safety Board. If you click there, you will see updated information. And this is where we will be continuing the conversation in November and then in our preceding meetings in the following year. So if you'd like to follow along, that's how you can stay involved. And again, I'd just like to echo everybody's gratitude. Thank you for coming, and it was really informative.
You want to do the formal closing remarks, or?
I guess I have a pre-written closing comment here, but we covered everything.
Yeah.
So I think I'm just going to limit it to say thank you for your input, and try to encourage others to get involved, because this is just how Ms. Branneman said, it's a process, standards and stuff that'll improve things, and then could turn into regulations and stuff. There are some issues we've discussed that, yes, something has to be done, and it could, this is the best way to do it in a cooperative manner together. So, and you also mentioned the meeting scheduled in November, and then also any comments, digboard@energysafety.ca.gov. So more input, the better.
Yeah.
And thank you for putting this on.
Yes, and thank you to our host, Dig Alert.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, everybody.